Welcome to The Pursuit, a podcast produced by the Junior Board of the Chicago Midwest Chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, otherwise known as NATAS. We are a group of emerging media professionals seeking insight from leaders in our field. I'm your host, Aliyah Muhammad, an Illinois State University television production major, and today I'll be interviewing Chicago-based comedian Pat McGann, who's performed on The Late Show with David Letterman and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Meeting with me again.
Great to meet you virtually. Here we are.
Right.
Nice to see you.
So I guess we'll just jump right into it. What inspired you to become a comedian, and how long was that from when you actually decided to pursue a career in comedy at 31?
Well, I was, that's a great question. I was kind of knocking around in sales, and I had always kind of enjoyed writing, and I had kept notebooks and enjoyed stand-up and funny people and funny things, but I just never really knew what to do with it, and then I met my wife. We had just met and started dating, and I kind of shared this secret with her about all my notebooks, and she actually really encouraged me to hit the open mics, kind of helped me make it real, and kind of push me out there a little bit, because I'd never been on stage. That was the biggest hesitation, was getting the guts to get out on a stage.
Was your first stop Zanies nightclub in Chicago, or did you hit smaller nightclubs before you went there to Zanies?
Oh yeah, much smaller. I was just, there's bars in town where there's a whole culture to this comedy scene in a lot of these cities that I don't know if everyone really appreciates. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but once you start looking for them, there's open mics everywhere. And you just go into a place, and one night a week they might have an open mic, and you find the list and you sign up, and it's not really even a comedy club. It could just be a bar or a coffee shop, or I've been in record stores and comic book stores, all these random places wherever they had a live microphone, and you would just be looking for stage time anywhere. And you go in there and you put your name down and try and get up and get it out into a microphone. And the Zanies thing happened through just after you do the mics for a while, and you think that, hey, I want to show Zanies, the booker, like a 5-minute set. And that took, months before I was able to get in there and do that. And then after that, it took like a year to get booked, so it's a grind.
Right. So what kind of things are they looking for when they look at your portfolio and your other stand-up to hire you for a really big nightclub?
They just want you to be funny.
Okay.
There's never there wasn't an official audition, or it kind of comes with time, and they see you, they get comfortable with you. There were quote unquote audition nights. They would have on Monday nights the Rising Star Showcase, and it would just be a night for amateurs to try and come in there and get the attention of the booker. And also a night when working comedians would be off and just drop in and try new material. And so it's definitely was a place where talent was cultivated, but it wasn't like, hey, come on in and I'll audition you, or here's your one shot and maybe we'll give you a job. And then outside of the scene that they cultivated here in Chicago, they would book comedians to come in from LA or New York, mostly, and it's a national headlining club, so they'd bring in big names. And when I was the house MC there, that's who I was starting to get exposed to. Would see all these great comedians come through Zanies, and got to introduce them to I was the host of the show at that time.
Right.
And just learned a lot from being around all that talent night after night.
Nice. So when you were building your portfolio, would you ever find yourself sort of kind of tailoring your act to what you think agents or people who would be hiring you might like? Or was there anything that ever crossed your mind?
When I first started out, I kind of maybe had like boundaries more than, and I guess I still kind of do now, but I didn't have anything that I was like, it wasn't really deliberate or intentional. I just wrote stuff that I thought was funny. And then I realized after doing it for, a while and being exposed to, these comics and kind of learning the ropes, I just realized that the best thing is to do is just write about your life and write about your personal experiences and your opinions, your thoughts, the things that annoy you, the things that you love. You got to write about things that you feel strongly about. And that's kind of where I look for the material now.
Nice. So when you said they had a bunch of like big comedians come from LA and New York, is that how you sort of were able to perform on pieces like Stephen Colbert and with David Letterman?
Well, yeah, and in a way, like I was definitely meeting people, and but like the Letterman thing really started. The booker came to Zanies, and he would go around the country and look at comics, and they would, the comedy clubs would put a showcase together and say, here are some comics you should consider. And that's I kind of got my foot in the door there. And then I was working with a comedian in Ohio, and he had been on Letterman like 12 times and was Letterman's like favorite comic. And he said to me, we were in Columbus, Ohio at the Funny Bone. And he said, they're looking for comics. I'm going to recommend you. Can you send a tape? And at that time they had just changed bookers. So it was a comedian that really helped me get on Letterman, and was able to do that a couple of times. And then the Colbert thing was just, again, another comic recommended me, and I sent a tape in, and that's kind of how it happened.
Nice. So when an agent asks you, someone asks you to send a tape in, what snippets, how do you choose what snippets to go in there? Do you go off audience reaction or just what you felt was your strongest?
Yeah, oh yeah, both really.
Okay.
I mean, you definitely want to take the stuff that works, and then you have to consider the show and what what they're going to allow on there, and but that's a process too. So a lot of times, the set ends up being a 4.5 minute, 5 minute set is usually what they want you to aim for,
Right.
and I would always send about 6 minutes, knowing that most people, when they look at it, a set like that, they kind of want to put their stank on it, like, I'm going to make this cut, make this suggestion, like just, I'm going to put something on it. So if you give them 6 minutes, that allows them some room to make choices about 6 minutes that you like. So if you feel good about those 6, you're not going to feel bad about them shaving it down. So that was always the case with the 3 sets that I did. It was always like, I'll send them 6 and then see what we come up with.
Nice. Do you think there's any like general thing recruiting agents are looking for in a comedian? Because it depends on the show.
No, just funny. I mean, I think, and now more than ever, it's, I think it's driven by the social media and followers. And, I think there's such a wide range of comics now too, that they're just, there's almost like every audience is like a niche audience, so I think comedy is really strengthened because of that. It's like everyone is seems to have everyone's kind of their own channel now. Everyone's their own network.
Right. So speaking of social media, do you think there's still some value in like going the traditional route of applying for nightclubs and doing stand-up there instead of just like posting the sketch on YouTube or Instagram?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's nothing like the live performance, and you have to get the reps in to be able to pull that off. And I've seen plenty of, hey, if the goal is to just to make money from social and post videos and content, and you just want to be a content creator, and you could really do well with that, and you probably could be very entertaining along the way and make a lot of people laugh. And I know it's changing. I mean, everything in this space is evolving quicker than we can probably even keep pace with. But the interesting thing is nothing can short circuit the live in-person experience. And even for me, I'm still, you know, I'm fairly young, and not as a human, but as a comic. I've only been in it for, less than 15 years. So I'm still learning a lot from live shows, and I'm still, you have to go through that. I mean, you gotta earn that, from just the repetition, and I didn't have to grind as like a lot of other comedians that had to, travel more. I was able to get a gig in Chicago. I haven't had to move. A lot of people have to uproot and move. I haven't had to do that. So, there's a path for everyone, and everyone's is different. That's what's kind of cool about it.
Nice. Do you think there's a certain temperament you need to be a comedian? Like, were you ever nervous when you did your first stand-up?
No, there's nothing. And that's the thing. Like, there's no right way to do this. I don't have the answers. But I would say, like, whatever temperament you are going to bring, you have to have some confidence in it. And confidence is probably the biggest thing. Like, there is something to say about that. Even if you were like a meek character, you have to be confident in that meek, awkward character. You have to be, be able to stay in that lane. And I think I think the confidence thing is the biggest, number one, just because, like, an audience can almost smell blood. Like, they can, like, tell when someone's not sure, like, and it makes them unsure, it makes them uneasy. Like, if you're confident, they're confident. And if they're confident, that means they're comfortable enough to laugh and have a good time, rather than, feel anxious for you. And so, I mean, I think that's and that's that goes back to that live performance repetition, because I've seen people come in to clubs that they sell tickets. Like, this is the interesting thing that's happening right now with live entertainment, and especially with comedy. There are people that can sell tickets that can't necessarily perform a live show and kill it from, for an hour. They might have clips and have stuff online, but now there's also stand-up comics that aren't selling tickets. You could put me in that category to a certain degree, but certain markets, probably because I am in this professional of my dog barking in the middle of my interview.
You're listening to The Pursuit, the weekly podcast produced by the Junior Board of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Chicago Midwest Chapter. I'm John Owens, the NATA Chicago Midwest Chapter President. March is a special month for NATA Chicago Midwest as we highlight high school media students in our chapter. The deadline for our high school production awards is on March 4th. And we'll have a special virtual workshop for high school students interested in media on March 5th. And the deadline to apply for high school scholarships presented by the chapter is on March 18th. Go to our website at chicagomeonline.org for more information about these upcoming events. And now, back to The Pursuit.
So yeah, what I was saying with the, so you have people that are probably better at the job, but they're not selling the tickets, so they're not getting the bookings. And then you have these people that can sell tickets, and then they have, all of a sudden, they have to perform a live show, and some of them are not comfortable doing it. Like, you can tell. I've seen it.
You tell a lot of jokes about your family and your wife and stuff. How do you differentiate between stories that may just be funny to you personally and story that will be funny to a whole audience?
Yeah, I think that's a constant struggle. And that is, again, with going out there and just doing it. Like there are times where I think, oh, I got a funny story. A lot of times those stories can end up being like, oh, I guess you had to be there. There is a trial and error to that, you know, and that's all what it is. Like when I'm trying to build the material, you know, is you swing and miss a lot too. Like some of the stuff just falls flat. So it's like the audience tells you, you know, like they dictate. But, you know, I think that the more I do it, the closer I am to kind of knowing what's going to work for me and what's not going to work for me, or kind of what I want to talk about. Because some things I've tried already and kind of been there, done that. So that's a factor as well.
Okay. And what does a typical week of work look like for you?
Well, there's a lot of travel. So I'm touring with Sebastian Maniscalco a lot, and he's on a national tour, and we're really going everywhere. Nice. So we come home during the week, but I'm usually hitting the road on Thursday, coming back, you know, Sundays, sometimes Mondays, and so it's a lot of travel. And there's, you know, I have a podcast that I do weekly.
Oh, nice.
Spend time writing, and I have to, you know, tackle the social media, which I'm trying to pay more attention to. So every week is a little different because I'll find myself in a different place, and I do a lot of private gigs, corporate gigs, and meeting a lot of people is a big part of this too. Seems to be. So the weeks they move quickly, and they seem to be pretty packed with activities. So I don't know that they're very like much the same week to week. Okay. I guess the routine is chaos, basically. That's,
What would you say the most challenging part of your career is?
Keeping it all organized, because I got to be honest with you, I got into this so I didn't have to work. And it's caught up to me. It's like it's you have to manage a lot, and you have to manage yourself. And you know, I like to goof around and try and be funny and make people laugh. And you know, now I have to be pretty serious because I'm trying to run this. It's kind of like running a business, but it's also like, you know, I got kids and I'm gone, and it's you know, it's just balancing, keep everything balanced. It's tough, and that's hard for anybody, right? It's hard for all of us.
Right. What's the most rewarding part?
Making people laugh. I mean, no doubt. Like I honestly, like if I get a chuckle out of you, I'll be happy. Like I just when I'm doing anything, like it's just my way of connecting with people. And really, like I stop myself sometimes and just like what a great way to make a living. Like I get to make people laugh, like and then when I boil it down to that, it takes a lot of pressure off. I mean, it's definitely pressure to make people laugh. There's pressure to be funny. But when you realize like the worst thing that can happen is they don't laugh, like I mean, come on, right? There's so much going on these days. And I think that laughter has even like climbed the ladder even more. The kind of responses that I'm feeling out in the last year, people just loving being together, being in a theater, in a comedy club, and like connecting and laughing and having like shared experience. Like that's what we've been deprived of. I mean, meanwhile, it was like one huge shared experience, but we weren't physically sharing it. So now when I'm seeing people, they're just like, people are having fun. They are. So I'm hoping we see more of that, and that we can, and that snowballs.
Right. This seems to be an argument that's coming up a lot recently about how, you can't be funny anymore because everybody gets so offended by your jokes. How do you like feel about that?
I try not to give life to that, because
Okay.
I think it's a huge, like, almost conspiracy.
Okay.
Here's my take. This is what I think. You can say whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can joke about whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
You will have to face consequences,
Right.
and be accountable for what you decide to say.
Mm-hmm.
So have at it.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to be silenced. And this is more a crack at the people that are crying cancel culture,
Right.
or
Right.
saying like, oh, you can't do. Yeah, you can. You can do whatever
Right.
you want. But guess what? Some people might ice you out. Some people
Right.
might not want to be associated with you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have to figure that out, be an adult about it. But
Right.
the other reality is, anyone that may have been held accountable and then seems to be maybe coming back into the fold, or, coming back around, they also, in some cases, I think have, hey, they have a platform, they're using it. If they're selling tickets and they have people that want to come see them, I mean, it's kind of where it is right now, right? Everyone's their own thing. And how can you say someone's canceled when they can go online and reach millions of people? Like, it's just like some people are just, things change, and what you can, what's quote unquote mainstream acceptable. If there is a mainstream anymore, I don't know. I feel like we're all just floating out here.
That's very true. So if a young comedian was really concerned about being responsible with their comedy and they don't want to say anything that could be damaging now or in the future, what's your best advice for avoiding that?
I don't know. I can't even imagine, I think it's hard right now for older comedians because of like the changes, right? But that's kind of a narrow perspective, because I am an older comedian.
Okay.
But you just made me think about younger comics. Like, think about starting out right now. And I wouldn't want like my first sets on, people seeing me before they needed to see me,
Right.
or having things that might have been said off the cuff, or, things that are taken out of context. Like, yeah, it's a thing. And I think about it because I have kids and it matters, in every way of life. Like this whole, having something get out there and be judged by it, right? It's it's like a precarious situation. It's a dangerous world we live in because of that, and things that can be put out so quickly. Yeah, I don't know. It's but the younger comics, they have to definitely consider that. And I mean, I always think, like, talk about what you'd want to talk about with any, like, who do you want to make laugh, first of all? How do you make them laugh typically? And most people are going to be in I think the right boundaries. But it's also a heavy lift to expect comedians to be,
Right.
carrying everything in terms of like the torchbearers of truth and all that too. Like, I mean, come on, we should just be making people laugh, right? I mean,
Right. And I
there's
always
certain
like to
ways that
think,
you got to speak out. I'm sure certain things.
yeah, I always like to think that the apology matters the most. Say, because you're never ever gonna do something completely perfect, but if you mess up, to be able to own it and not make excuses and not antagonize anybody else when you go and apologize. So I think that's how you recover from it is always what makes or break you at the end. Would you think that works for you or for anybody else you've seen?
Yeah, I think that's actually
Okay.
very well said. That's beautiful. I like that. It is
All
the
right.
analogy that matters.
Yeah. What do you wish you knew going into comedy, and what do you wish you had done maybe better or differently?
You know, I used to beat myself up like, oh, I should have started sooner, but I don't know that that's true, to be honest. Because I've used everything that I learned up to that point, and being in sales helped, being in the business world helped.
Right.
I think I can always work harder. I think I could always, you know, work smarter. It's not that I wish I started sooner, but I wish I had realized earlier that listening to like your passion and not being concerned about stepping out from the group, you know, because I can remember when this started and it was like, how am I going to give up Fridays and Saturdays? Like I'm not going to be around. And those first few years when you're missing weddings and birthdays and that's first happening, there's so much guilt and so much like, gosh, I never used to miss that stuff. And after a while you get used to that. It's kind of strange, but I mean, I don't, I think the biggest change in my life is how I look at the days of the week now. Like how I see Fridays and Saturdays are completely different than everyone else. I used to live for those days. Now I live for Mondays and Tuesdays.
Oh, that's never good. But going from sales to comedy, what was your first step, and how did that feel, knowing that you were just completely going to change career path?
You know what? It was gradual. So it was tough because I was on commission and I was starting to pay less attention to my sales job. But since I was on commission, I kind of felt okay about it. Like, hey, I'm only gonna, pay me what I earn, right? So then I was let go, and maybe a little sooner than I was hoping for. So it was like a little bit, not, I figured I would be okay eventually, but I picked up a job at a restaurant and just tried to, hustle some things together. But it's like, you never really know the perfect time to say, okay, I'm going to be now a full-time comic. The first year or two, it's, it's a tough adjustment, just trying to cobble it all together.
Right. What has been some of your like favorite projects to work on?
Oh, good question. I think like just touring again. It's always stand up. That's my favorite, like doing the live shows, but I also like, I did a project that ended up not really like getting legs with a Chicago station. And it was a fun project to work on together. We had a great team, but can't say it was the most fun because it never went anywhere.
Oh, okay. What would you hope to work on in the future?
I would love to do a show, either like a show about my life, like growing up here in Chicago and living on the South Side. That would be a lot of fun, right? Like a sitcom style ish. Or I would love to do like a kind of like an Anthony Bourdain, like just going all over the place and just meeting interesting people and like being led by curiosity and humor.
Right. If a college student is thinking about going to comedy right now, what's the most beneficial thing they could do to start their career? Like, I guess after they listen to this podcast.
Get an Instagram account.
Okay.
Start recording yourself. No, I don't know. I
Right.
really don't know. I mean, I think it is like such a changing game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you want to eyeball someone a little bit younger than me, but I would
Okay.
tell you, as a grizzled vet,
Okay.
writing is for
Okay.
me the what I think is the biggest payoff. And
Mm-hmm.
when I say writing, I don't necessarily mean like sitting down and
Right.
chiseling out every word, but being aware of your thoughts and feelings and what you think is funny and jotting them down right away, and then
Mm-hmm.
also like letting it take you into different directions, and being led by questions and
Right.
different angles, because I feel like that's where a lot of the jokes come from.
Okay.
um just find ways to be inspired, stay inspired, and work hard. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard work, like it.
Right.
And I don't mean like hard like breaking rocks and
Mm-hmm.
sweating. I'm just saying, like, you have to stay at it.
Right. Do you ever judge or critique other comedians' work?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
publicly, but
Mm-hmm.
internally.
What are the like most mistakes that you see being made, like in new ones or even old comedians?
Oh, that's, I mean, when you look back now, some material just doesn't
Mhm.
hold up, and you
Okay.
could tell now when maybe someone was taking shortcuts or
Mm,
grabbing low-hanging fruit, that
mm,
maybe when you're younger you didn't realize. You might
right.
have a more sophisticated look at it now, or a different
Mm,
take. You get
right.
older, or I don't I don't know about like mistakes being made or things
Mm-hmm.
being um with that. I kind of just try to worry about myself. Like,
Okay.
I got plenty to do before I start throwing rocks. But
Right.
I do I watch them, you know either if someone is inspiring me, I'll continue to watch them. If
Right.
they're not, and if they're not making me laugh, then I won't.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this: when I start to watch a comedy special, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
often as
Right.
much as it used to be, but I watch it a little differently. Like, I watch it for like how are they coming out? What's the intro?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the shot? Like, how are they
Right.
filming it? You know what I mean? But then I also um I do want to laugh. Like,
Right.
I don't think I'm watching it to be like,
Right.
ah,
Right.
spiteful.
Mm-hmm.
When I want to enjoy comedy. I still am a stand-up
Right.
fan. I love
Right.
comedians. So
Mm-hmm.
but the hard thing about watching them is you don't want to, sometimes it might bum you out. It's like, oh, I have a premise like
Right.
that, or you
Yeah.
know, or you don't want to be overly influenced either. So, or at
Mm-hmm.
least I
That's
don't want
true.
to be. So,
Right. Do you ever consider what takes a piece from like being timeless from something you might look back at 10 or 20 years and be like, that was kind of iffy?
yeah, I mean, I don't have stuff that's that old yet, but I do have some
Okay.
old stuff
Right.
that I'm like, okay, what was I doing?
Right.
Um, some, when I talk about like low hanging, but I had like a bit
Mhm.
about Taco Bell that I was real proud of
Mhm.
at the time. And now I'm
Okay.
like, God, everyone had a Taco Bell joke. Or, um, yeah, timeless. I think, you know, people will tell you that in terms
Mhm.
of just the way they respond, or there are certain jokes that you do realize, okay, that one
Mhm.
resonated more.
Right.
Um, and I guess that's what it is. It's based on feedback. Is
Mm.
is I think what kind of tells you that. I don't know.
Nice. Where do you think you go? Like for a young comedian, where do you go to find feedback? Do you just go based off audience or should you find a
Yeah,
mentor somewhere?
no, I think you find just as many live audiences as you can,
Mm.
and then
Okay.
you will find mentors. I think
Okay.
the best mentors probably come maybe naturally. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you might just find that you might seek someone out that you want them to tell you what they're gonna tell
Right.
you.
Mhm.
When you become a stand-up comic,
Mhm.
you're going to you have to do it in a scene,
Mhm.
typically. So you're going to meet people in that scene, you know.
Right.
Just about every city has one. There's a few cities that have great ones.
Mhm.
And you just learn. And then a lot of times you move to the
Okay.
next scene, or to, like I said earlier, New York or LA. But it's definitely something that you probably have many mentors
Mm.
throughout the career, you know.
Mm. Do you have any specific comedians that have inspired you throughout your career?
Oh yeah, I have so many. I mean, there are comics that I watched growing up that I'm sure, I don't know if they inspired me or influenced
Mm.
me or just maybe drew me closer to comedy.
Right.
But you know, since I started working and started like in Chicago,
Mm.
Mike Toomey, Dwayne
Okay.
Kennedy, Kevin
Mm.
Bozeman, these are comics that I've had like great careers. They
Mhm.
might not be like household names, like
Mhm.
none of us are, but
Right.
we're all like climbing, and you know, these guys have done some really cool stuff in this business. And just being like around them,
Mhm.
hearing their comments after shows,
Mm.
picking their brain,
Right.
getting their respect
Mhm.
after time. um I mean, what I've learned from comics like that, it's insane. And then there's
Right.
comics, like great comics that you watch. And
Mhm.
you know, now I've been touring with Sebastian,
Mm.
and I mean, I don't think anyone's had as much impact on me than him.
Okay.
He's been such a supporter, and
Right.
he leads like by example. Like
Mhm.
it kind of even took me a while to realize that too, because I'm such a
Mhm.
like loud person. I'm always
Okay.
talking. And he's just not as much of a talker.
Okay.
He's a doer.
Mhm.
And I see his work and the results of it, and it's there's some great takeaways being around him.
Nice. How do you know how much inspiration to get from another comedian's style or content, and when does it become too much of them and too less of your own voice? I guess I'm trying to say.
I mean, that's probably a lot of times, a lot of comics early in their career have that because
Mhm.
they just don't have their own thing yet. And it
Mhm.
takes a while.
Right.
But I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. And if it
Okay.
doesn't wear off quickly, then you're
Mhm.
probably not going to be long in the game.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like you
Mhm.
gotta find your own voice. You gotta be
Right.
original.
Mhm.
Um, Otherwise it's just, you know, I think you're gonna come off as a fraud.
Right.
But there are people that
So,
probably make career doing that.
yeah. um, so how do you define success? And do you think you found it?
N- yes, I think I found it just
Okay.
because I'm happy, right? You
Right.
know, and I think that's what it is. If you're happy doing what you do, then you're successful. I mean, w- yeah, it's tough, right? Like
Mhm.
who defines it?
Right.
Success. We define it for ourselves. Um, you know, having 3 great kids, being, you know, still in Chicago. I haven't had to move.
Right.
Um, I'm doing what I love.
Right.
Yeah, I feel successful. I'm not really driven by success or like
Mhm.
accolades or the attention. Like
Mhm.
I'm really driven by like I need new stuff, and
Right.
I have to make people laugh. And
Right.
if I want to keep doing shows, and if they're gonna
Right.
keep coming to shows, I need new material.
Right.
Um, and I love that process still. So
Right.
um, that's what I would say. As long as I can keep doing that, then I think I'm just gonna stay in that successful-ish area. I'm more like just, yeah, I'm happy, right? I mean,
All right.
trying to be.
Yeah. Would you ever consider writing for a show like SNL?
Yes. I don't rule anything out. Anyone that wants to hire me, I'll work for them.
All right. And lastly, is there anything you'd like to shout out?
Shout out.
Shows, social
you know what?
media?
I also have a podcast.
Nice. Shout out.
It's called All Over the Place.
Okay.
And it's
Where can they
random.
listen to it?
It's on iTunes, Spotify.
Okay.
We should be shouting out Spotify these days. It's on iTunes, and it's called All Over the Place. I do it with the comic Jim Flanagan, and
all right.
it's a lot of fun.
All right.
And I'm on Instagram. Hit me up. If you heard
Nice.
this interview, send me a direct message right now. Let me know what you thought of Aliyah's questions.
I know. Don't do that.
She was hitting me up.
Well, thank you again for talking to me. This has been an informative interview. I really enjoyed it. I'd like to again thank Pat McGann for speaking with me and sharing how to start off a daunting new career. I think it was great to hear from a creator who started their career off later in life, so more young professionals know that it's never too late to chase your dreams or start over. This has been The Pursuit, a Natus Junior Board podcast. Thank you for listening.